Do your kids refuse to clean up? This is a problem that happens day in, day out in many, many, many families. And I guess it's the kind of thing that it's very rare that you don't have any tensions at all through the course of a childhood around the levels of tidiness or when things should be tidied up. My name's Jodie Thornton, and today I'm going to take you through my 3 top strategies to handle this. So the first one I want to talk about is actually giving the real reason to our kids as to why they need to clean up. So we often give really broad brush, like blanket rules about why things need to be cleaned up. And we start to say things like, if you made the mess, you have to tidy up after yourself, or you need to be a person that's considerate of others, or even a house is not allowed to be this messy. This is not a way for us to leave our house. And all of those things, sometimes they're true and sometimes they're not, but they're just so abstract. They're so blanket. They're about the future, or they might be about like rules that are arbitrary because they know that some houses have these rules and some don't. Or it can be different days. Like on one day we might be willing to clean up for them and other days we won't. So there's all of they know that these things are just not necessarily the truth. They are arbitrary rules that we're making up, and they just don't get to what is happening in this very moment. So really start to think about, if you've got one spot or one time of day where you're routinely having difficulties with your kids about being willing to clean up, start to think about what is the reason that you need it cleaned up. So if it's putting your dishes in the kitchen, then that is, it actually takes me so much time to do the dishes if I have to go around and collect everybody's dishes up, then that's the reason. If the reason is you feel really upset at having to clean up somebody else's dishes, then say that. It's like, I really don't enjoy picking up other people's dishes and I don't want to do it. So that means it needs to be you, right? So whatever the real reason is, when we look at things like Legos, it's like, well, if I step on a Lego, it hurts. And so I do not want to accidentally step on a Lego because I've forgotten that it's a bit messy. If it's something like I actually can't relax unless the room is tidy, it agitates me. And then we start to say, like, what is the real reason? Then our kids start to they can actually be better at problem solving. And they also, instead of just going, well, you're just making that up, like, this is just a rule. Why don't we have a different rule, which is you clean up after me, right? So it moves them away from that and into what's really going on in that moment. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to talk about is having some kind of routine about things. So you can look at where are we creating awareness that they actually need to do things and allowing some natural consequences to happen. So when I say natural consequences, this can get very, very tricky because people start to talk about natural consequences and they start thinking about, how do I get them to see through the consequences of actions that they shouldn't act that way? But that's not what natural consequences are. Natural consequences are the things that happen regardless of, like, you don't artificially create anything. It's the things that just happen if they take the action. So for example, their things might get trodden on and then ruined, or it might be that their Lego creation gets destroyed by a sibling. All of these things are natural consequences. They're just things that happen. It can be that somebody trips and hurts themselves. Now, here's the trick with natural consequences. There's 2 parts. One is making sure that you're not kind of getting into the how do I create a natural consequence that lets them understand it. But the second trick is we need to identify where is the line of we're actually allowing things to go a bit too far. So for example, we have a large tiled area in our living area, and if I let papers stay on the floor, then people fall over, and because it's tiles, it hurts, and the kids are too young to think far enough in advance, and they're also too young for that to be like just to stand up and brush yourself off and move on kind of thing. It's just not a good idea. So when it's papers, I either choose to either make them clean it up or I clean it up, one of the two. I don't allow a natural consequence there because the injury is too much, and every family has a different line of where it's too much, but you need to decide where is your line. The second area where natural consequences can be too much is that if you are actually going to get very, very upset and angry if the place is untidy, so say for example you're a person who can't relax around mess, if that means that everything else that happens for the rest of the day, you are going to go straight to anger because you're already up to here before anything happens, then that is a time where that's too much. Like, they're not necessarily even going to connect to those consequences to the action they've taken. And secondly, if it's going to last all day, that's too much for you as well as for them. Like, it's just a line. And again, there's a line of like for every person and every day is different. But notice where is the too much line, and then start to say, okay, so instead of just allowing it to go and be natural consequences, this is going to be too much for me or too much for them. So therefore, I'm going to take some action. Either I'm going to make them clean it up, or I'm going to clean it up myself because it's just too much. Now, the line that I make as too much is if I'm not able to manage my reactions. So when I call it reactivity, is when I'm going into an automatic response rather than a considered, or if I feel like I'm taking a choice, whether it's like a quick choice that doesn't even feel like I'm thinking about it, versus when I feel like I would not choose this kind of parenting if I could take a minute. Right? Once I flick into that reactivity, that's my line that it's too much for me, and so then I take some action. I change the situation by making them do the thing that needs to be done, or I take care of it myself. I don't allow myself to live in reactivity because it's not fun. Like, it's not fun for them, but it's also not fun for you. And we often tell ourselves that we have to keep going with parenting strategies that are the right way to do things, but it's just a lot of air quotes today. We often tell ourselves that we have to do the right thing, but if doing the right thing is putting you into reactivity, that means it's not the next step for you. So when you notice that line, if that's where you'd like to make your line, I find life just is so much easier. My parenting improves much faster when I make the line when I've shifted into reactivity, and life is just so much more fun for everybody in the household. That's my line. If that's what you make your line, then that's where you go. It's like, okay, am I going to choose to make them do it, which may or may not go down well depending on how skilled you are at doing boundaries and helping to change their behaviour. And the alternative is you take care of it yourself, and that's a choice, right? There's no right answer, but it's what feels right to you in that moment. So the third thing I want to talk about is problem solving and being open to creative solutions. So this is the place where I see so many parents coming to parenting forums and asking questions. This is the situation I have. What do you recommend? And people come up with all these suggestions, and some of them, like, you can see people go, well, I can't do that because, or that doesn't suit my situation because, and some of them are actually good suggestions, they're good guesses, but I would rather everybody talk to their own children. Like, they're right there. Like, if we want to talk about problem solving, this is not an in theory thing. Like, yes, there are so many times where I have been given creative suggestions from other parents that have been things I would not have thought of, and it has been really helpful. But the thing is that creative solutions that come when I work with my own kids about what to do, it's so much easier, like, it's so much quicker, and it builds trust and connection. And honestly, one of the things I tell my clients often, your kids have so much more time on their hands to come up with solutions. Let's let them do it. Like, let's let them. So when you know how to come together with them, where you know how to bring your side of what's needed and stand like strong in this is what I need, when you know how to help them articulate this is what I need, and then you work together to like brainstorm what's going to work better, and you know how to handle the times where the brainstorming, either you don't come up with an idea you both like, or you come up with an idea but it just doesn't work. You've got to be capable of moving through those places where it doesn't work, and then all of a sudden the biggest shift that happens is that, yes, far more of the time you will actually come up with something that works for both of you. But the biggest shift that happens is that if you have a problem, it doesn't mean it feels bad. All of a sudden, a problem is just a problem and we just work with it. So a problem can be a source of connection and play and fun, because we can just say, hey, I really don't like it when the lounge room is just so messy, and our kids say, oh, but I just really need to finish my creation. And then you go, oh, how can we work this out? And then you come up with some ideas, and and it sounds like, when I explain it, it sounds like I'm giving like a scene from a movie that would never happen, but it happens in my household and it happens for my clients. Like, there is a way to help you and your child just deal with whatever comes up. And this is where, in this place of the tidying up, because it's every day, this is a perfect place to start practicing. How do we, when we have a problem and it's something's not working for one or both of us, how do we solve the problem in a way that works for both of us? How do we make not just solving the problem better, but the process of solving the problem? How do we make that fun, connected, easy? So those are my 3 tips. We started out with being clear on why they actually need to clean up. The second one is a little tricky, but it's worth giving a shot, is the natural consequences, making sure that we're not trying to find a way to convince them through consequences that they shouldn't behave that way. And then also making sure that we're not letting things go too far, but that's a really great one to experiment. But I think the one that's the most fun is just being open to creative solutions and problem solving together. Now, if that's the one that you'd like to try out, I have a webinar called Dealing with Defiance. I'll pop the link to register in the description of this video. And I'd love to hear what has been interesting, because this one I've kind of pushed the envelope a little bit with the things that I'm suggesting. I'd love to know what has resonated, what feels a bit too far and why, and also what you're interested to try. So pop in the comments any questions you have and any of that feedback. Thank you so much.